is completely tectonically tortured, this satellite. It's had a very complex geological history. And sometime around July of '05, we executed an extraordinarily close flyby of Enceladus. We flew closer to Enceladus than any other moon in the Saturn system, only 175 kilometers above the surface. And then at that point, we were staring at the south polar region of Enceladus. And now this is where all our attention is on this moon. It is characterized by a ring of fractures and folds and mountain belts that is contiguous, completely goes around the South Pole. And you're looking at the south polar region right here. It's characterized by these fractures. This is a false color image. Enceladus is completely white because it's completely water ice, except for these cracks where we find they are in fact distinctly colored here because we find simple organic materials are coincident with these fractures. And then another remarkable result is that we have found that the hottest place, the warmest place on Enceladus is the South Pole. That's as bizarre as finding that the South Pole, the Antarctic of the Earth, is warmer than the equator. That's how remarkable this result is. And the hottest region in the South Polar region are these fractures. Okay, and then as if that weren't enough, we found that issuing forth from these fractures are jets of fine icy particles extending. Here you can see tens of kilometers into the space above Enceladus. And when we take an image like this and we color code it to bring out the faint light levels, we find that these jets feed an extensive plume, and in other pictures we've found that this plume extends for 7 or 8 Enceladus diameters. It is a remarkable, dramatic finding. And when my team and I have taken these images and the other information collected by Cassini, we have found that it is possible that these jets are in fact geysers that are issuing forth from subterranean chambers of liquid water close to the surface of Enceladus. So this is a remarkable finding. If we are correct, and remember we have liquid water, we have simple organic materials, we have excess warmth. If we are correct, then we may have just stumbled upon the holy grail of modern day exploration, and that is an environment that is possibly suitable for living organisms. And the prospects of that, as you can well imagine, are thrilling. If we are correct, and if we find eventually that Genesis has occurred independently twice in our solar system, and that is a big if. But if we are correct about the liquid water, and if at some point, perhaps in a revisit to Enceladus with another mission, we find that there are living organisms beneath the surface, and in fact, perhaps even captured in these plumes, then we can, I think, be assured that Genesis has occurred a staggering number of times throughout the life of the cosmos. The 13.7 billion year life of the cosmos, a conclusion that you might imagine could prove very difficult for standard religious doctrine. So what about now this issue of death and immortality? I think that belief in God in the God concept brings with it a guarantee of immortality, and that's why people find it so attractive. People are afraid of death, and I think the approach to death in our culture is a colossal failure. We don't talk about it, we don't teach people how to anticipate it, how to feel about it, and people are afraid to die, okay? And do we have anything in this story that I just told you that can comfort those who wish to live forever? I don't think so, because people as we are constituted right now, are not going to live forever. But, I mean, that is just the simple truth of it. But I think that there may be another way to look at death and immortality that can be taught. And I believe that it is possible to learn to regard death as a natural event, an event that is part of the natural order of things, and even perhaps a wondrous state. And it is a transition that takes place against and within the beautiful pageantry and magistry that I just showed you in the story that we have constructed and what we see around us in the universe. And, you know, that is something that can be taught to be a comforting thought. And after all, we know exactly what it's like to be dead, because it is exactly like the state we inhabited before we were born, and there's nothing in that to be afraid of. And I think we can, in fact, offer hope of sorts for an everlasting existence. I mean, our mortal bodies, of course, are going to perish and decay, but the collection of individual pieces of matter and individual particles that within us we have learned are ancient, and will go on, after we die, we'll go on and go back into the cosmos and live forever. But in one form or another, whether they live on as matter or they get converted to energy, they will, in fact, last forever. And I believe that we can and we should teach people to find comfort in that thought in the way that children are taught to find comfort in the God concept. Someone mentioned emotional dividends. I think we should teach this as an emotional dividend of the